In millions of older Jeeps, most of them built before 2005, the gas tank is located behind the rear axle of the SUV, just inches from the bumper. Millions of those vehicles have driven safely on our nation's roads for the past 2 decades. But when it comes to rear-end collisions, consumer advocates say the position of the gas tank makes the cars more vulnerable to punctures and leaks that can lead to deadly fires. News Center 16's Megan Hickey joins us now with part 2 of her series on the Jeep recall. And Megan, as you showed us yesterday, the fuel tank defect hits close to home for one South Bend family.
It does, Maureen. Ana Piña should have walked away from her rear-end collision on US 30 in 2012. Instead, she spent the last 2 years of her life in agonizing pain after her car was ignited when the fuel tank ruptured on impact. What's even more painful for Ana is seeing other victims fall to the same fiery fate since her accident. Today, she's one of many advocates pushing Chrysler for change.
You know, when I first met Ana, obviously, she's striking for all the wrong reasons, unfortunately. And I think just like anybody else who would see Ana on the street, you can't help but to wonder what horrible tragedy happened.
That horrible tragedy happened while Ana was driving her 2000 Grand Cherokee. The fuel tank, mounted in an area often called the crush zone or the crumple zone, ruptured upon impact, and Ana's car burst into flames. Ana was severely burned over 40% of her body, and it wasn't long before she learned that her fiery nightmare had also been a reality for other Jeep owners. What set her apart from most is that she lived to tell the tale.
I know it's hard, but I have to go back and remember things that I can do it right now.
To help Ana tell this story, let's go back to Elkhart in the late 1970s. The nationally publicized Ford Pinto trial put the spotlight on fuel tanks in the crush zone. That case led to a recall in 1978. The same year, an internal document to Chrysler's own chief safety engineer discusses the same fuel tank problem. It proposed the relocation of the fuel tank or the creation of a protective structure around it. That confidential memo was made public in part due to the efforts of Paul Sheridan. He spent 11 years as a manager at Chrysler, heading up the company's safety leadership. Chrysler fired and sued Sheridan for revealing confidential company information. Sheridan countered with a whistleblower lawsuit claiming he was fired for speaking out about safety issues. Issues like the one in the Baker memo.
The Chrysler engineers are basically saying that we aren't in much better shape than the Ford Pinto is with respect to crashworthiness of our rear-mounted fuel tanks.
But Sheridan says more than a decade's worth of certain Jeep models show that the company didn't listen to its own advice.
The people that did not listen to the Baker memo were the Jeep side of the Jeep and Dodge truck organization.
For those models, the tank stayed where it was, and the fires ensued.
The primary failure mode that makes the Jeeps more dangerous than the Pinto is the fact that the Jeep has a higher ride height, and the under-ride accident is so much more prevalent. There's no protection. An offending vehicle can make direct contact with the rear-mounted fuel tank.
There were 254 fuel-fed fire deaths by the year 2009. That's according to a count by the Center for Auto Safety. The group issued a letter to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration asking for a defect investigation into the fuel tank design. NHTSA conducted its own investigation. It concluded there is a performance defect and a design defect that presents an unreasonable risk to the motor vehicle. Last June, NHTSA requested a safety recall on 1993 to 2004 Jeep Grand Cherokees and 2002 to 2007 Jeep Liberties. Chrysler's response? No. These Jeep vehicles have proven to be safe in operation, the company said in a statement, and the company's analysis shows the incidents at the focus of the request occur less than 1 time for every 1,000,000 years of vehicle operation. Chrysler said the investigation cited incomplete data sets and unrepresentative comparisons. Sheridan says he wasn't surprised by the response.
They generally get very, very rigid in their response, especially when there's been a long history of litigation where they proclaim that no defect existed. In my terminology, the vehicle is defective. the vehicle represents a safety risk that's unacceptable.
Many victims, like Ana and their families, were appalled.
I say, how? How they don't take the responsibility?
She held up her amputated fingers and said, "And Chrysler is telling you there's no problem. Look at me. Look at my hands. Do you still believe that there's no problem?"
But the recall saga took another turn just 2 weeks later with a new statement from Chrysler saying, Chrysler Group and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration have resolved their differences in respect to NHTSA's request to recall 1993 to 2004 Jeep Grand Cherokee and 2002 to 2007 Jeep Liberty vehicles. But it was a limited recall of about 1.5 million Jeeps, shy of the 2.7 million requested by NHTSA. Ana says that means thousands of lives that could end up like hers.
I have a mission. I have to tell. That's why I am here to talk to everybody, to the world.
Now, despite agreeing to that limited recall, Chrysler still asserts that their vehicles are not defective. And again, this doesn't involve any Jeep models built in the last 7 or 8 years, only 1993 to 2004 Jeep Grand Cherokees and 2002 to 2007 Liberties.
But there are a lot of those out on the road, Megan. Now, this recall involves an unusual remedy.
Right, Maureen. So Chrysler says installing a trailer hitch provides sufficient protection for the fuel tank. And as you'll see tomorrow in part 3 of my series, there's definitely some debate over that.
Yeah.
Also, it's been more than a year since the recall was issued, and as of the 1st of this month, we're told that not a single car has been serviced.
And all that on a day when Chrysler had another 700,000 recalls announced today.
That's true.
All right, Megan, thanks a lot.